Alright, now with the mounting boot on, all ready to go, it's time to mount on the fork. So to start off with, pick the opposite side to the air intake, which is over here. Undo the air cap, and this can be done on both sides. So what we've got here is the air cap of the Lyrik anti-clockwise, and the air cap will come undone. And there's your suspension valve, taking the Shockwiz, pivoting around and attaching into the fork against the thread, and they're nice and snug. After an hour of not being able to get a seal, what you actually need to do is insert and install the Shockwiz without it being attached to the fork. This attachment here has to be incredibly snug. So on the Shockwiz you can see there an air pressure of 4. I'm certain this is just sort of a calibration error, and that's reading off atmospheric pressure. So with the Shockwiz attached, that's finger tight there, but you've got 2 points of movement. So one, there's a thread connecting to your valve, and then secondly, there is some free pivot available to really allow you to best position the Shockwiz. So by securing the bottom thread and then rotating in a clockwise direction, what you can do is get that nice and snug. So number one, getting the Shockwiz thread nice and tight, then tightening by rotating the free pivot. We'll get to a point where now the Shockwiz no longer registering 4, but measuring the 57 PSI, which is in my fork. So that means we've got a good connections, no leaks, and the Shockwiz is now registering our air pressure. The next thing to do is to fire up the Shockwiz app, and as you can see, the connect up the top and waiting for our device to show. Connect to, and there's my Shockwiz ready to go. To start with, we just need to run a calibration wizard for the first ever run. Confirmation on the app that we've got air pressure. Really, it's time to follow the instructions and remove air from the shot. So with an Allen key, we're connecting, and we know we have a good seal because the air pressure is reading, and just letting all the air out. And there you can see the air pressure in the shock falling just on purely letting the air out. And hopefully we'll see down to atmospheric again. So that's all the air out, and once again reading that baseline atmospheric, or the 3.9, so with that bit of calibration error that we read when there was a poor connection with the Shockwiz. So with the air out, press next, and it's wanting to pull the fork to full extension and then compress to at least 50%. So with not much air in the shot, that'll be pretty easy. All the way down, all the way up, and then we're pulling up to complete extension. 2,
3, 4.
So you can get a bit more extension by pushing up. And then 5. And that final full extension. So with that process completed, we'll go next. And then it's wanting me to mark full extension. So this is performed by pulling the shock to full extension and holding that position while taking the measurement. So we're extending, holding for 1, 2, 3. Now it's wanting to mark full compression. So we'll start with timer, compression. 3, 2, 1. That's full compression. The final stage being verify full extension. So to do this, starting the timer, extending all the way. 3, 2, 1. What the Shockwiz is now asking for is to inflate to the manufacturer's requirements. Now for me, I'm 70 kilos and I normally ride with a fluid pack. So 70 kilos plus a bit of extra gear will be approximately 65 PSI. So connecting in my shock pump into the Shockwiz, once again against the thread so it seats in, then lock it up, and we'll start pressurizing the system. And what you can see is as I pump, the pressure on my Shockwiz on a digital display is also climbing. 4 to 13, and we'll keep setting that up to 65 as per the instructions of RockShox for this Lyrik. So there you go, on my gauge is 65, and on the calibration wizard we're at 64.7. So I think that's pretty good for a shock pump to be that close. We'll remove the shock pump, and what it's wanting now is compression to at least 50%, then pull back to full extension. So down to at least 50% compression, then all the way up, and we'll repeat that the 5 times as requested. What it's wanting now is to mark the baseline pressure at full extension. So we'll start with timer, extending for 8 seconds, and there's my calibration score. And so what you can see here is a real-time pressure in the fork, and then the level of shock travel. So pretty cool. So there it is, all set up with 64 PSI. I'm off to night duty, so I'll go have a sleep. Once I'm off in 3 days, I'll test it out on the trails and let you know how it goes. Have a good one.